And the second example is, certainly it is loving to my neighbor that I not kill him or her. But the sixth commandment is just as certainly about loving God. I must not kill my neighbor, not just because my neighbor wouldn't like it, but because, guess what? God is the giver of my neighbor's life. I cannot be loving to God if I kill those who belong to God, and everyone and of all creation belongs to God. But there is an even deeper level to this twofold interpretation and application. And it was kind of confusing for me. When I was 14 years old, I was a sophomore in high school, and we were asked to create a ballad. Well, we were learning about different kinds of poems, and you know there's different kinds of poems. And a ballad, and some of you sing ballads, ballads is a story. There's a story in a ballad. And then you have a refrain in it. And the refrain is the substance of that story. And when we were told, Mr. Howard asked us to go and read the newspaper, and in the newspaper, find a story that we would want to create a ballad about. Well, I don't have a copy of the ballad. I remember what the refrain is. A man's home is his castle. A man's home is his castle. That was the headline of the article. You see, this man in Bridgeport, Connecticut, saw somebody going into his garage, somebody. And he went back into his house and he got his gun, and he, as the person was leaving the garage, he shot him. When the police came, they found out that he had shot a 15-year-old boy, a year older than me when I was writing the ballad. And in that bag that he had taken from that garage was just a bag of rags. He shot and killed a 15-year-old over a bag of rags, and he kept repeating, but a man's home is his castle. It's confusing. One of the most basic of all the biblical theological affirmations is that man and woman are created in the image and likeness of their Creator, Redeemer, God. In some very profound ways, then, men and women are like their God. For example, like God, people have a will to create things, a desire for relationships, a value of beauty as well as usefulness, a capacity to communicate by word and so on. If this is the case, when we learn the basic movements and components in the loving God, we are also learning the basic movements in loving our neighbor made in the image of God. What God wants, we also want in some profound sense. I wish I had met that man. I don't know the tone in which he said a man's home is his castle. But the ballad, I remember the feeling tone of the words that I wrote. And that was one of remorse. One of, what did I do? How will I be forgiven? How do I love my neighbor? And is there anything that important in my life that would have more value? The 10 Commandments are also 10 principles And this is familiar territory. God's law lays down God's righteous, holy standards, the right thing to do in God's eyes, so that it is an act of love to make God the only one. But the Ten Commandments are also about 10 commandments of life and freedom. In the prologue that Caleb read, I'm giving you credit for writing it now, read in Exodus 20 so clearly indicates that the Decalogue, and it's called the Decalogue because the Hebrew scholars say that there actually were just 10 words. It wasn't these big long sentences. There were just 10 words that the Israelites, the Hebrew people, were given. And it says, the God who brought you out of Egypt and out of the land of slavery. These 10 commandments, it says, if you keep the commandments, I will be your God and deliver. They do not teach that if you keep the commandments, I will be your God. No, the redemption of Egypt and the adoption as God's people happens by grace and by God's initiative before the law is even given. They were already their people. But these guidelines, they were almost like warning signs. You could almost say they were like 10 warning signs. And that to disobey any of these warning signs was then to take you out of that freedom that you had won and bring you back into slavery again. So these 10 principles says, you shall have no other gods before me. The first way we love God is to make God the only one. And we'll talk about this in more detail next Sunday. It is the principle of exclusivity and a unique place. God has the right to that place of worship and centrality in our lives. The choice is also good for our neighbors, as I've indicated. It sets us free from inferior and false gods, and it teaches us the basic principle that our spouses, our partners, our kids, our friends, our employees each need to have their own unique place of value in our lives. Not God's place, but certainly their place of value. The second way we love God is by letting God be free and alive, by not substituting some fixed image, whether it's artistic or theological or cultural, for this dynamic, living presence, speaking, living, and acting in our daily lives. This is a living God. That's why putting them in stone in front of a building is not a living document. So too, people made in God's image are spouses, our partners, our kids, our colleagues thrive when we let them be alive and growing. They shrink and suffer when we create images and stereotype them. Also, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Well, obviously, we're remembering the Sabbath day and keeping it holy. That was a stance of freedom. Because up until that point, they had been working 7 days a week. They were slaves. This was to give them freedom. The fourth way we love God is to take some time off, quality time each week to be with God. The fifth principle, honor, to honor our mothers and fathers, means to treat with respect and care those who have been God's agents to bring us life and to bring us truth. Now, Martin Luther saw this as broadly meaning respect for all authorities, political, ecclesiastical, familial, and otherwise, to see it more as an agent than as authority. Parents are ideally those who bring you life. They bring you care, they bring you teaching, they bring you encouragement. So do all the other authorities are doing the same thing. And then 6, the one that I mentioned that causes me confusion with stand your ground and my home is my castle and protect everything. We love God by protecting the life and existence of his creatures. These lives belong to God, not to us. I learned as a child with the corporal acts of mercy in the Catholic Church, but also Martin Luther and John Calvin said that this meant not just not murdering or not killing, but it meant feeding the hungry, sheltering the homeless, healing the sick, calming disputes, not just refrain from shooting or knifing your enemy, but it means caring. I wanted to imagine in that man's heartache that he wanted to say, pause, and wonder why a 15-year-old child, teenager, would steal rags. I wanted to ponder how he would care for his neighborhood differently. I prayed that there would be understanding in that community. I prayed that he would be like the neighbors I had. I prayed that he would be like the neighbors I had growing up that would catch somebody doing something bad and sit them down, not pull out a gun. I imagine in my heart of hearts that when we live in a world in which our thoughts, our intentions, our attitudes, and spirituality are of fundamental importance. Not just when we show up in church, but when we leave. These 10 words, these 10 commandments, this preliminary covenant between God's people and God are a living document. We love God by seeking a pure heart that thinks and wills the best for God and best for our neighbors. And it is a good thing, a really good thing, that in worshiping one God, that one God that we worship is the God of all people. Thanks be to God. Amen. just proves my theory that when you sing an upbeat song, they clap, and when you sing a more meditative, reflective kind of anthem, there is no clap, because you don't know how to show how much you like it without noise. As we come to a time of prayer, and as we come to prayers of the people, what good thing happened this week that you would like to celebrate? What good thing happened this week that you would like to lift up?
Well, I would like to lift up my family. I got to spend about 5 days in Minnesota taking care of our 3- and 4-year-old grandchildren, and they're growing into fine little citizens one of these days, so they give Grandma a run. But I'm very thankful for having the grandchildren, and also thankful that Kate and Allison, our son and daughter-in-law, were able to have a good rest, and they were in Las Vegas during that shooting. They did not go to that concert. Cade said he was old and tired and went to bed. A wise 31-year-old saying that. So they did not get in that tragedy, and we do pray for those folks that did.
Generous God,
a week ago today, we had our second annual Crop Hunger Walk, and we have raised $795. And of that $795, 25% of that will come back to the Northeast Tama County Food Pantry to provide food and meals for those in need in our own communities. And just a reminder that October is Hunger Awareness, and I am quite involved with the food bank and the food pantry in our local area. There is still time to donate if you'd like to. You can make checks payable to the Crop Hunger Walk, but please give. It is a really, really good project. Thank you.
generous God. And along those lines, we still have lots of vegetables in the garden that can be shared with people that are hungry.
We got to go down yesterday, and I got to hold my great-grandson for a whole hour and feed him, and then we went to Bubby's and their baby shower, and I got a text from Jordan, and his wife is home but still on bed rest and doing well, and she thinks they will 37 to 38 weeks, why then they will clip these stitches, so everything seems to be going pretty good, so thank you for your prayers.
Generous God. One up here. He's coming.
I don't know how many of you are aware, I think a lot of people are, but 2 years ago, my son, Nathan, and his wife, Stacy, became foster parents to her brother's 2 children, who at the time were 3 and 10, 9. And about a month ago, they adopted the 2 kids. So I became a grandma again. And it was a long labor, but more than worth it. So we've welcomed into our hearts and homes Zoe and Braxton. They are now, Zoe just turned 12, and Braxton will be 5 this week. So, yay, more grandkids.
Yay. Generous God. Awesome. Any other good thing this week? Jenny.
Okay, I'm sorry, this might be long. I will try to shorten it up as much as I have to. My first Thanksgiving is I'm just thrilled to see Janice Lyons in church today and feeling better. It just makes my heart so happy, so happy. I even had to write them down. That's how much I have, and that's just awful. The first one, I just want to answer a couple questions because my mom has been asked, and I've been asked about my health. I have fibromyalgia. I'm on medication for that. Right now, it's a day-by-day thing. I don't know how I'm going to feel till I wake up in the morning. I had to give up my job at the veterinary clinic because I'm unable to work right now. And it has led to some other health issues I am having. But I'm here, so, okay. I would like to have prayers of concern, or these are prayers of concern. Vicki Damrow, who is suffering from stage 4 lung cancer and receiving treatments right now. Rocky Graveman's youngest sister, Sherry, has stage 4 lung cancer and is also going through treatments right now. Michelle Bolin has thyroid cancer, and it has spread, and that's all I know about that right now. And Kevin's Aunt Tony is going through some health issues also. We're still waiting for answers on what her problems have been, so just prayers for her. And then for the Russ Pritchard family. Russ passed away last weekend, and I didn't know if I hadn't known it before yesterday. So just prayers for that family also. Thank you.
Thank you. Generous God. Are there any other?
I have two. One is our daughter and granddaughter moved back from North Carolina. They got in last night to Cedar Falls, so they have moved back to Iowa permanently, or as permanently as life is anymore. So we're going to go see them this afternoon. Haven't seen them for a while. So we weren't sure whether it was a Thanksgiving or concern, but we're going to take it as a Thanksgiving. And the other one is that 34 years ago, Inez and I were married. It took her 2 years to convince me to marry her. Now, I can say those things because she's not here to defend herself.
Oh, she'll watch it on TV, though. Be careful.
But we have had 34 years of adventures, and good ones and bad ones, and we're looking for a lot more years of those adventures and fun and togetherness.
Happy anniversary. Generous God. Are there any other prayers, either of thanksgiving or of concern today?
Well, I also have a concern. I know I wasn't here last Sunday, and I know that tragedy in Las Vegas, and that just the latest. Well, there was one more that happened. I don't remember where it was, where the guy shot 5 or 6 people at an airport. And I just pray that we can all come together, not just in our own small community, Dysart United Methodist Church, but that people can understand or realize that we all have a right to life. We all have a right to happiness, and no matter what type of person we are, no matter what describes us, however we're described, we all deserve that right to our happiness in our life.
Mm-hmm. Generous God. Are there any others this morning? I think we'll pray for if these folks are needing to go out on a run, whatever the run is, whatever the concern is that they're being called forth, generous God. And let us be in Marilyn, back there.
I'm happy to have my husband join me in church today. He hasn't been here since January.
Generous God, pour out your love. Any others? Then let us be in a time of silence. Lord, meet us in the silence. Holy One, send us wisdom from the east. Remind us always to give thanks for the gift of our lives with every sunrise. We remember and pray for the newborns and young children in our community, and all who help to birth new life. Holy One, send us wisdom from the south. Remind us always to give thanks for the gift of each other with every warm wind. We remember and pray for all who are finding their way, searching for identity and meaning. Holy One, send us wisdom from the west. Remind us always to give thanks for the sacred gift of creation with every falling leaf. We remember and pray for all whose work has come to an end and all who harvest, gather, and nurture. Holy One, send us wisdom from the north. Remind us always to give thanks for strength and understanding with every cool breeze. We remember and pray for those who are in need or are seeking rest. We're ever mindful of those that mourn the loss of loved ones. We especially remember Kay Sampman. And we remember Howard's sister Dorothy. Holy One, help us to find the holy in our everyday life. Help us to find the holy as we fold the laundry, as we clean up the mess from breakfast, as we tie the shoes of a little one. Help us to find the holy as we pick up trash someone else left behind, as we wait patiently to cross a busy street, as we take notice of the people in need on the street around us. Help us to find blessings in this world and to bless others by sharing your love with ordinary, everyday people in our ordinary, everyday lives. And as we gather these prayers together, we pray the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Father, let us now offer our gifts, our tithes, and our offerings for Christ's work in this church and around the world.